And now for something completely different. Hello everyone, Nate here, and I've been requested to read a fan fiction made by Silent Jenny 1 of YouTube. She has requested me to read a Megaman X slash Tenchi Muyo crossover story. She has 2 chapters for me, so this is chapter 1. Chapter 1 is called Little Girl Reploid. Let's begin. The world formed around her as cherry blossoms swirled the breeze, dancing the being known as Matrix. Matrix? I don't know. She held her hands on her hips and released a sigh, watching a gorgeous sunset from where she stood. She came here sometimes to escape the world. In a way, to escape from herself. Normally, she was alone here. It was a rare event for someone else to occupy this little space she thought of as her own, but tonight was one of those occasions. She spied a girl, blue of hair, pink eyes, sporting an anguished look. She held her head in her hands, trying to stop the tide of tears that escaped from her eyes. Before Matrix could talk, the girl asked, "Well, we'll be friends forever, right?" Matrix nodded, without thinking. Not really knowing what to think, the girl vanished as if she'd never been, as loose cherry blossoms churned where she once stood, the wind and petals erasing any trace the girl had even existed around her. The world doubled in her vision, the crackling of static loud in her ears. The sunset she had been watching disappeared, as everything in her environment went black, collapsing into a single white dot before her. Matrix watched in fear and confusion. As the world rebooted, she found herself in a lab, a scene of horrible destruction. The cherry blossoms were gone, the girl was gone, the grass under her feet was gone. What her eyes now found was shattered glass, being pulled downward, obeying gravity, as if time had suddenly just decided to start, after being on pause. As the broken glass collided to the ground with a sound of 1,000 tiny bells, she found a Reploid with a blue armor and a buster. Covered with dust slightly off to her side, with a shocked face looked upon his face, the mystery man slammed aloud. "What? You're awake!" Taking her new environment in with a quick scan of her surroundings, she spied a capsule colored the same as her armor. She began to understand that she wasn't really watching that sunset. It wasn't real. It was a dream available only to all those who weren't born of flesh and blood, but of metal, gears, and science. She thought to herself as she shook off the remnants of sleep. Was that girl really just a dream? The silent footsteps was drawing near. Another Reploid in red armor, resplendent with blonde hair and saber, screamed the name X. She spun around, trying to locate the one whose name he called. X! I found a survivor! He moved about quickly, excited by his find. "A survivor?" Matrix asked, looking around. "Where?" She surveyed the damage around her, straining to locate any sign of life. "Who are you? What happened here?" she asked X, his blue armor reflecting only a small amount of light as he neared, answering his comrade's call. "My name is Matrix. You probably know more than I what happened here." She continued to look around her, trying to make sense of her environs. "She could have been made just before the lab was destroyed," said Zero. Matrix looked up at him and said, "Whatever happened here is just only another thing that I'll never understand." Casting her eyes downward, she realized she knew nothing other of her past than what she had been programmed to remember. Even though she was newly made and activated, she felt a hole inside, feeling that was so much more than she had missed. "X? Zero? Guys, can you hear me? Did you find any survivors?" Zero recognized Alia's voice on the communicator. X responded to his portable transmitter. "Affirmative. We have one sole survivor. Are you picking up anything else on the scanners?" "Sorry, guys. All sensors are all clear. If you're done, return to headquarters." "I don't want you being down there much longer than you have to be," commanded Alia, her voice crackling through the communications device speaker. Matrix, you're going to have to come with us," stated one of the designated as X. Just as he reached for her, a black flash, originating from under the table, launched itself at X, latching himself on his face, scratching and biting him ferociously. The creature appeared to be a half-cat, half-rabbit hybrid. About 2 feet in length, it was assaulting X with the fury of a creature 10 times its size. "Get this thing off me!" screamed X, frantically trying to wrench the creatures off his face. "Okay, come," scolded Matrix. The hybrid abandoned its overzealous attack, dropped to the ground, and surrendered to Matrix, sullenly calm, as if it had never been in altercation. "How did you know how to call it?" queried a confused Zero. "I don't know," blinked Matrix, in shock herself. How did she know how to call off the creature, or its name? Having been newly activated for the first time, how was this creature familiar enough with her to heal when she commanded? Her attention was diverted from this mystery to the Reploid in blue, X. He was slightly injured, though she doubted the creature was really capable of doing any serious damage. Wiping out a trickle of blood from his forehead, X growled, "We need to go, now!" Back to 8 headquarters. They found themselves surrounded by complex computer systems, lights blinking, screens flashing. The walls were in a gunmetal gray. All sounds seemed to reverberate as if they were in an echo chamber. The sound of their breathing was audible, some whom Matrix could only assume was Aelia. The voice from the communicator was busy tapping commands into the console she was seated before. To her side was little mi-ohki, rubbing her furry body against her leg, meowing. It seems that this strange little fuzzball had made a new friend. "So, you're in the new Reploid Matrix, right?" Aelia didn't even look up, searching through multiple databases for any information she could retrieve regarding the enigmatic Matrix. "And you are?" "I'm Aelia." She continued on with her work. She raised her hand to wave, putting it back on the input keypad the instant she finished the gesture. "You, my new friend, are quite the mystery. I can't seem to locate you or any of our databases, and I can assure you they are the most extensive." A moment later she sighed. She turned to another, who was seated nearby at another terminal. "There's no data in any of the indexes that would clue us into this matrix. Absolutely nothing." "Are you sure? She seems to be of a common enough design," replied someone Matrix had never heard of before. Nodding to the new Reploid, he introduced himself. "Name's Cygnus, and I help out around here. Keep these folks in line." Smiling, he eyeballed the new find. She seemed indeed to be one of the more common models. "I guess the only way to find anything about Matrix here is to return to Tokyo, Sector 123A69B13. I think it would be best for everyone if she was to stay with us," said Aelia, nodding her head towards the now only somewhat confused Matrix. When X and Zero excused themselves from the room, discussing new advances in Reploid armor and armaments as they made their exit. Seeing the two leave, another person seated at the table in the center of the room marked his place in his book and placed it on the edge of the table. Standing, he studied Matrix momentarily and smiled. "Hi, name's Axel. Pleased to meet you. Up for the grand tour of HQ." Grinning wildly, he led Matrix out of the room, going over what made this place better than any other like it. X and Zero reached the wreckage of the lab, where they found Matrix, hoping to find a clue as to what set her apart from others like her that were similar in appearance. X tapped on a massive girder that blocked entry into another part of the lab. This section seemed to have taken the brunt of the assault. It took but a single slash of Zero's Z-saber to cleave the metal in two. Sizzling, the metal fell asunder, falling to the ground with a heavy thud. After a brief inspection, they found that this portion of the lab was in fine shape, as if nothing ever happened. Beakers and flasks containing unknown chemicals lay on tables, undisturbed by the destruction but a few dozen feet away. On a desk in the far corner, a lone disc lay. "That must contain information on Matrix," triumphantly cried Zero. Pointing at a storage media, X strode towards it, arm outstretched. Before he can reach it, however, an alarm sounded. Speakers in the walls blared out a glitched digital record. "Lab self-destruct sequence activated." X dove for the disc, snatching it from its table's surface. Holding it firmly in his hand, he dashed off He dashed off with his companion, almost slipping on some debris that had fallen due to their cutting the girder. Regaining his balance, he joined Zero in exiting the lab. Reaching their transport, the two investigators escaped as explosions ripped through the complex, obliterating the lab they had stood in barely a minute before. If the disk they had in their possession didn't contain the information they sought, there would be now no second chances. When they returned to headquarters from their mission, X handed Alia the recovered disk. He hoped it was worth it. Strange. According to this data, Matrix here was made by a woman named Washu. Let me check the records. I believe we have a file on her, stated Alia. She immediately spun around in her seat. Her fingers sped through the characters on her keypad, ferociously digging through the new information for the answers she knew had to be there. If she can't find anything, we'll be right back where we started, said Zero, turning his gaze toward Matrix. And that's the end of Chapter 1. Stay tuned for Chapter 2.